What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Mafia podcast. Today we are talking about the two Monday night games that happened last night. First one being the Pittsburgh Steelers over the New York Giants, 26-16. From a fantasy perspective, we had a few fantasy plays here that definitely played out. Quarterback side, Ben Roethlisberger, he looks like he's back, going 21 of 32 for 229 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. On the Giants side, Daniel Jones, 26 of 41, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, including a interception inside the red zone after a 19-play drive when the Steelers were up 16-10. That kind of turned things around right there. It was just a bad throw overall. He was under pressure, tried to make something out of nothing, and just basically threw it towards the goal line, and 3 Steelers were there and they came down with it. So since after that, I mean, the Steelers drove down, got a field goal, made it a 2-possession game, and kind of just took it away from there. But overall, a solid fantasy day for both quarterbacks. Both of these guys, I mean, Daniel Jones, he might be available in some leagues. I know he was drafted a little more often than not, but Ben Roethlisberger, he's definitely a name that we're going to be bringing up on our waiver wire show. I know he wasn't drafted in a lot of leagues coming off that injury last year, but yeah, I mean, it looks like he's back and he found his new favorite target. I mean, we really haven't seen him yet with just Juju Smith-Schuster. The last time we saw Big Ben, Antonio Brown was still there, but when I get to the wide receivers, I'll talk about his numbers. Going on to the running backs, though, James Conner seemed to leave the game with an injury, ankle injury. He finished with 6 carries for 9 yards, so a lot of people are getting him late 3rd, early 4th round and plugging him in, and he ended up putting up a stinker. He caught a couple balls out of the backfield, but overall, the running game really went to Benny Snell. 19 carries, 113 yards. It's hard to say. I mean, if you had to play him for whatever reason, I know there's a lot of injuries or questionable players going into Sunday's games where I don't know if Benny Snell was really first on your list to throw into your lineup, but if you did, then you got a solid 11 points there, which isn't bad. And then he didn't do anything out of the passing game either. But for a plug and play right there for Benny Snell, that if you had him, then congratulations. Going on to the Giants side, it was a terrible day for Saquon Barkley running the ball. There was just no room at all for him. He finished with 15 carries for only 6 yards. He did get you some fantasy points in the receiving game, though. He went 6 receptions for 60 yards. So if you're in a full PPR league, 12 points there, half PPR. Obviously a little bit less, but 60 yards receiving, 6 receptions. They kind of just made up for his stinker of a rushing game that he had. Onto the wide receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster, as I mentioned, he seems to be loving playing with Big Ben here. 6 receptions for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. Deontay Johnson, he was targeted quite a bit. 6 receptions for 57 yards. Chase Claypool, the rookie out of Notre Dame, 2 receptions for 39 yards, including a beautiful toe tap grab at the sideline. James Washington had the other receiving touchdown for Big Ben. He went 2 receptions, 34 yards, and the 1 touchdown. Then Eric Ebron got on the reception board. Like I mentioned, James Conner had 2 receptions for 8 yards. Vance McDonald, 1 reception. So majority was just Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson, mostly owned in a lot of leagues. I don't know if people were really playing Deontay Johnson, but if you did, you got some good numbers out of him. Chase Claypool, he's definitely a guy to keep your eye on. Not too many targets, only hauled in 2 receptions, though, for 39 yards. As the season goes on, we'll kind of monitor how he's doing, if he's getting more in the target share. But Big Ben has a plethora of weapons to throw to, so obviously those first 2, Juju and Deontay, are going to be, for the most part, regular starts, but we have to kind of monitor who we want, maybe in our DFS leagues, as far as the other guys go, between Claypool and Washington, Ebron and Vance McDonald. On the Giants side of things, obviously Golden Tate did not play this game. So Darius Slayton stepped up big time. 6 receptions, 102 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was huge for them, huge for the Giants. He was all over the field, catching miraculous passes. I really wasn't high on him going into this week, especially against the Steelers defense. But what he did against the Steelers defense, I'm definitely going to look at him a little differently. I know he had a little bit of a rep last year with Daniel Jones, and it just picked up where it kind of left off from last year. So Slayton is definitely going to get a little bit more respect from me after putting up what he did against the Steelers defense. Sterling Shepard went 6 receptions for 47 yards. So good PPR day, didn't get into the end zone. And then, like I mentioned, Saquon Barkley, 6 for 60, which is really where you got your points from Barkley from because he didn't do much in the running game. That was pretty much it. The only other fantasy relevant guy for the Giants was Evan Ingram, 2 receptions for 9 yards. I know he was a lot of people's kind of sleeper pick this year, thinking that he'd break out, thinking that he's maybe get back to form, what we saw in his rookie year, and so far not so good. Hopefully he turns it around. Obviously it's only one game. Other than that, get into a couple IDP numbers here. Terrell Edmonds led the way with tackles, seven tackles for him. Joe Hayden had 6 tackles. Devin Bush with 5 tackles, all for the Steelers. I know T.J. Watt had the 1 interception. I forgot who had the other interception. I do apologize. And then on the Giants side, a defense that we thought was, I mean, they held their own for a little bit against the Steelers, but a defense that we thought was going to be a lot worse than what it actually was. Blake Martinez had 8 tackles. Corey Ballentine had 7 tackles. Leonard Williams and James Bradbury and Lorenzo Carter all had 4 tackles apiece. So if you had any of those guys in your IDP leagues, you got some decent numbers there. But overall, a good game. Started out a little bit slow. Started out looking like the Giants were not really going to run away with it, but going to definitely give Pittsburgh a run for their money. And then all of a sudden, like I said, that interception by Daniel Jones after that 19-play drive where they could have either brought it to 16-13 or even taken the lead 17-16, that kind of just turned things around from there. So Giants are 0-1. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1-0, and they both move on to week 2, and I don't have their schedules in front of me, but yeah, so just pay attention and listen to our waiver wire show and our start sit show that we got on Sunday morning, and that's that. And now I'm going to finish this off with the last game of the week, the Tennessee Titans and the Denver Broncos. Tennessee, they won 16-14, so they start off the season 1-0. Denver is now 0-1. Obviously, the biggest news is they're missing not only some key pieces on defense and just overall, but they went into the game without Courtland Sutton too, so a big fantasy play there that ended up not playing the game. He was kind of questionable going into Sunday and even Saturday. So hopefully you guys planned ahead and had a different replacement for him. But going over the stats from the game for passing, Ryan Tannehill dropped back 43 times, completed 29 of those for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. So pretty solid fantasy performance for him. I know he was not really drafted in a lot of leagues, but he was a guy, especially in a super flex league, you might have had him in your second quarterback spot, or I don't really know if you would have been streaming him for any specific reason, especially in week 1, but if you were, got some decent numbers out of him. On the Broncos side, Drew Lock went 22 of 33 for 216 yards and 1 touchdown. Neither of these quarterbacks threw interceptions, so definitely good there. Not the kind of fantasy day that you really wanted from Drew Lock, but definitely safe with the ball, so wasn't a terrible day either. Going on to the running backs or the rushing game, Derrick Henry carried the ball 31 times for 116 yards. No touchdowns, but still, I mean, Derrick Henry doing Derrick Henry things, going over 100 yards. His yards per carry 3.7, not exactly flashy, especially, but I mean, they put the ball in his hands 31 times, so it's only going to get better. He's going to break some more tackles and bust some open, but I mean, Derrick Henry, he's obviously an every week play, and you got solid numbers out of him. You really couldn't ask for anything else. And he actually, in the receiving game, he caught 3 balls too. So last year I think he only had 18 receptions the whole season. This week he's already at 3 for 1 game. So he's not really a big pass catcher out of the backfield, but showing yesterday that he does have some hands, and not real crazy. He only had 15 yards, but definitely that's another 3 points for you in the receiving game. On the Broncos side, Melvin Gordon, newest Denver Bronco, he ran the ball 15 times for 78 yards, got into the end zone, 1 touchdown. Philip Lindsay went 7 carries for 24 yards. He did get a little banged up and left the game. And then Drew Lock had 3 rushes for 5 yards, so adding a couple points to his passing yardage, and so not too bad there. Melvin Gordon, I mean, that touchdown probably saved a few people, but so really good showing for his first game with the new offense. On the receiving side of things, not going to toot my own horn just yet because he has done this in the past a couple times, but Corey Davis goes 7 receptions for 101 yards. He was the highest targeted Tennessee Titan of the game, so definitely looking like he could have that Devontae Parker breakout that I called a little early. Like I said, I mean, he has put together some games before, so not going to just base it all off one game. But if this game has any indication how the season's going to go, it looks like Tannehill's going to be looking his way a little bit. Adam Humphries, who was a little disappointing last year, had 6 receptions for 47 yards. So another one, he may not have been in many people's starting lineups. If you're in a super deep league, possibly playing him as like a 5th flex or so, but it definitely gives you a little bit of promise there that, okay, maybe Tannehill is going to be looking his way a little bit this year too. A.J. Brown, the Tennessee Titan wide receiver that everybody was actually looking at, was 5 receptions for 39 yards. So a little disappointing of a game, but still, I mean, 8.9 points in full PPR. Not too bad, but definitely could be better. We're going to be, I mean, you're not really going to be benching him too many times, but definitely going to be looking at matchups and seeing how that goes down. And then Jonnu Smith, the tight end that everybody wants to break out this year, with Delaney Walker gone, 4 receptions, 36 yards, and a touchdown. So he had one of Tannehill's 2 touchdowns. The other touchdown came from a 3rd-string tight end, Michael Pruitt, 1 catch, 1 yard, and 1 touchdown. So that's it for the Tennessee side. On the Broncos side, like I said, Courtland Sutton was not in this game. Noah Fant finished 5 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. It's another one of those tight ends that everybody has a lot of hype on. He definitely stepped up big with Courtland Sutton being out. Jerry Jeudy, the 15th overall pick in the draft, rookie, one of the better wide receivers that came out of the draft. He had 4 receptions for 56 yards. He did have a huge drop. I think it was either late in the 2nd or early in the 3rd. But, yeah, I mean, he could have had another 15 yards or so and another catch right there. Just a rookie mistake. I mean, it was right in his hands. He looked like he was looking to run before he caught the ball. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, it happens to the best players too. So just brush it off, Jerry, and just keep on moving. He had a solid first pro game in the league. So not blaming you for anything. Other than that, Melvin Gordon had 3 catches for 8 yards. Philip Lindsay had 1 catch for 11 yards. Deshaun Hamilton, even with Courtland Sutton being out, really couldn't get anything going. He only had 1 catch for 18 yards. So not too bad overall. I mean, really, Noah Fant and Jerry Jeudy were the only 2 really worth anything from the Denver side, aside from Melvin Gordon in the rushing game. And then finally, some IDP news here. Kevin Byard had 8 tackles leading the way for the Tennessee Titans. And then Kenny Vaccaro had 5 tackles for the Tennessee Titans as well. And I just want to see where Jadeveon Clowney, his first game as the Tennessee Titan, he had 2 tackles. One of those was a tackle for loss. So not a terrible game, but definitely we're definitely going to see those numbers get better from Jadeveon Clowney. And then finally, from the Broncos side, A.J. Johnson led the way with 8 tackles. Bryce Callahan, 6 tackles. Kareem Jackson and Josie Jewell and Essang Bassi. Sorry, probably mispronounced that, but 5 tackles for each of those guys. So Not too bad. It's the kicking woes for the Tennessee Titans. That was probably the biggest story, aside from the huge contract from Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry picking up where he left off. But the Stephen Gostkowski went 1 for 4, including a couple shorter misses, but the important one was the field goal to take the lead with a little under 3 minutes to go, and putting the Tennessee Titans up 16-14. And the reason they were in that predicament was because he missed an extra point, making them go down 14-13 instead of tying it up at 14. But that one kick that helped them to the win may have just saved his job with the Tennessee Titans. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of news comes out this week. But yeah, I mean, that's it for the Tennessee Titans and the Denver Broncos. They both put on pretty decent game. I mean, the game started pretty late here on the East Coast, so ended, I think, a little bit after 1 o'clock in the morning. But 16-14 Tennessee Titans. Tennessee starts off 1-0, Denver 0-1. And we will see you guys for the next recap.